nice. See, look at this. Look at this is the cell cycle. You definitely need to know this in and out. Everything on here is on your test because this has all the answers. All of them. Can you believe that? All right, so we're going to talk about body cells today. So body cells meaning like your muscle cell, your cheek cell, your stomach cell, any type of cell in your body that is not a reproductive cell. So not a sperm or an egg, but all the other cells in your body is what we're going to talk about. And so all those cells in your body have to reproduce in some way, shape, or form. And so if you read this, hopefully you read this as we go. This is posted on Google Classroom, so I would try to have that up while you watch this because that's what I'm doing is I'm going to go through this. And so it says on here the cell cycle. And it says how many phases are in the cell cycle. Okay, the cell cycle, you have to know, is different than mitosis. They're two different things. The cell cycle is this whole big circle, okay? Mitosis is literally those four things, P-M-A-T, just those four things, okay? So there's the cell cycle on this page is a little bit different because they just have their M. So this would have four, G1, S, G2, and M. There's four phases in that cell cycle, which I just listed there. It says during which phase does the cell size increase? You need to know that. I would go through and circle the ones every time I say, hey, you need to know that for your test. I would circle that because those specifically you definitely need to know. So number 3 says during which phase does the size of the cell increase? Well, you can figure that out. I'm going to put mine down and I'm going to hold this one up. Can you see that here? You can see, oh, my little itty bitty baby cells. Oh, he's big and large and in charge, okay? So G1 is where the cell grows. It gets bigger, okay? That's what happens in G1. Literally, the definition of G1, cell grows, okay? So it goes from little bitty cell to big cell, okay? So number 4 says, during which phase does the number of cells increase? Well, look at that here. It got bigger in G1. M is where it increases. If you remember, M from 7th grade is mitosis. Okay, so we're going to go to 6. Cancer, which we talk about next week, is the uncontrolled growth of cells. It often results in a tumor or mass of abnormal cells. Some cancerous tumors consist of many cells that are much smaller than normal. According to Model 1, what part of the cell cycle is most likely being affected? Okay, go back and read. If I read that too fast, uncontrolled growth of cells. Uncontrolled growth. Well, where does growth of cells sit? Remember what I just said? Where does growth of cells occur? That'd be G1, growth of cells. And there was another type of growth where it went from 1 to, where did that occur? M phase. So cancer could happen in either. It could happen in G1 or it could happen in the M phase. All right, let's go back to the data down here. That's super fun to analyze data because you get to do it anytime you take a science test like ACT. You have to analyze data. All right, so basically Model 2, number 8 says Model 2 presents cell cycle data for a typical human cell in culture. Use the phase names in Model 2 to label the GMS phase in Model 1. Well, they, so I did that for you, right? G1 is gap. S is synthesis, because in biology, synthesis means to make. And during the S phase, that's where they double the amount of DNA, because they're done growing now. The cell grew in G1, okay? It grew. Okay, the cell's a lot bigger. Now in S phase, S means synthesis. Now the DNA is doubling. Because, why is the DNA doubling? Because it wants to prepare for mitosis. And how many cells were made in mitosis? Do you remember? It just said it on the first page. So that DNA is doubled. That's DNA. If you're like, what did you just draw, Mrs. Trudy? That's DNA. Okay, the DNA is doubled. Because if you're going to go from one cell here, remember, there's 2 cells here. That's in that picture. One big fat cell. Okay, so now you have to double that DNA, because otherwise you'll have half of a cell. You can't do that. And then in G2, that's where you double the organelles. You prepare for mitosis. If you ever prepared for Christmas or Thanksgiving, there's all these things you have to do. You have to decorate. You have to buy food. You have to make desserts. You have to clean your house. You're preparing, right? So G2 is when the cell prepares for the cell to divide. Okay, so if we look here in that cell cycle data chart, gap one, G1 is the key process is to grow. S phase, the key process is synthesis, which means to make, which is making DNA. So make DNA. Okay, so they're just doubling it. The rest of the chart's filled out for you. Okay, so G1, what happens there? In number 9, G1, cell grows. The cell is growing in size. See, little tiny itty bitty cells. It's a huge, large cell. A cell grows, okay? And it says in mitosis, what happens? Instead of the cell growing in size, it grows in number. So it went from 1, here it's still 1 cell, and now it's 2, because mitosis produces 2 cells. All right, I'm going to have you try to do the rest of those, and I am going to talk a little bit about this while you try to do the rest of those, and then we'll get to the radiation. So you can do 10 through 22. Try and do that. You FaceTime your friends and do it together. Okay, so what you need to know about this is this whole circle is the cell cycle, okay? So what part of the cell cycle is the cell preparing or growing and preparing for mitosis as a whole? That would be interphase. See this word right here, interphase? The cell looks like this. Okay, it just is hanging out. So most of the cell's life, it's spending in interphase. So when we do this onion root tip lab next week and you look at cells under the microscopes, we actually might do it tomorrow. You look at cells under the microscope and you see if it looks like that, that's the nucleus, remember? The nucleus? Our microscopes aren't strong enough to see much more of the nucleus, cell membrane, and cytoplasm. So this is the nucleus. If it looks like that, it's an interphase because the cell's just hanging out and it's just growing. It's just preparing, okay? So you can't tell like this if it is G1, S, or G2. You can't really tell because we're in 10th grade and our microscopes aren't that good. Okay, so G1 grows, part of interphase. S prepares, gets the DNA doubled, part of interphase. G2, again, doubles the organelles. We can't see the organelles anyways, so we can't see that. Other scientists that study this for a living can with a different microscope. So this is all interphase. Then when it gets to mitosis, then it starts to look different. So tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, when you do that onion root tip lab, I'll review mitosis again a little bit, but then you'll see the different stages. See this right here, the PMAT? Those are all parts of mitosis. And boom, it happens in a blink of the eye. Look how much, see the red marker here? See how much the cell spends in interphase? See how much time that is? So much time in interphase. So mitosis, see how tiny that is from here to here compared to that? So that's why I say it happens in a blink of an eye. It doesn't spend a lot of time. It's very efficient and knows exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay, so this is what prophase looks like. Chromosomes condense and become visible. A little bit different than interphase. Sometimes it's confusing, but that's because that's prophase. You don't have to memorize all the stages, or you don't have to memorize every single thing that happens in all the stages anymore. Thank you to new standards. You just have to know that mitosis causes the cells. I should get another whiteboard. 2 cells made, right? Which we already went over. Okay, and then we'll talk about each one. So 2 cells made. Mitosis does that. Okay, so that's prophase. Metaphase. You probably had to learn all the cells line up in the middle. So tomorrow you'll see one looks like that. Oh, single file line. It's like you're going to lunch in kindergarten. It's metaphase. Okay, line up in the middle. Anaphase. Oh, the cell starts to get sister chromatids. Go to the opposite parts of the cell. If you're like, Mr. Dean, what the heck is becoming visible? What is lining up? You're not even telling us. It's chromosomes. I'm sure another one. Chromosomes. Chromosomes are, which we'll spend, I'll go over this again tomorrow. But chromosomes are your DNA. Remember your DNA? Here it is. Your DNA is all mixed up in the nucleus. It's all looks like a bowl of spaghetti. When the cell undergoes cell division, here in mitosis, that DNA starts to condense up and it starts to become visible. So it starts to make something called a chromosome. So these are all DNA. Normally what I do is I take my I take my phone in my classroom right now. See if I can do it with a computer cord. So I ask somebody really far away, sitting in the back row, can you see this? And they always say, no, I can't see it really far away, right? Well, now if I do this, and DNA is literally strands of nucleotides. Do you remember when we talked about organic molecules? 4 nucleotides, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleotides, and proteins. This is a nucleotide. Okay, so DNA is nucleotides wrapped around histones, which are proteins. So you wrap. Then I say, hey, student in the back, can you see this now? And they're like, I can see that. And so that is totally what happens. It does. You just missed it because you weren't in the classroom today. So then that chromosome becomes visible. And so in prophase, that's what's happening. The chromosomes are starting to become visible. So in metaphase, those chromosomes line up single file to go to the lunchroom, they line up single file. Then in anaphase, those chromosomes split in half. Because see over here, they have two sides, two sister chromatids. Not brothers, because sisters are better, I guess. I don't know. Two sister chromatids, like this. If you're like, I can't see what you're pointing at. Let me show you. There's one sister chromatid. Here is the other sister chromatid. Okay, two sister chromatids. Get split to opposite parts. The last phase, you remember this from 7th grade yet? Is telophase. Look at that. You have two cells. Starts to look kind of like bigger, but they're a lot smaller. And then in order for these cells to divide, that's this. Notice it's not part of mitosis. Kind of happens at the same time, but it's not part of mitosis because the definition of mitosis is division of body cell, remember muscle, skin, nucleus. So that's the definition of mitosis. Cytokinesis is the division of the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm isn't in the nucleus, so you can't include that in part of mitosis. Okay, does this make sense? It's a lot of information, but a lot of it's review. And then if you go over your 10 through 22, hopefully this will make sense. Okay, so how many cells did we produce again? 2, right? Are they identical, do you think, or different from the parent cell? Let's look at this diagram and see. Okay, so we started with these 2, right? The cell grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. Now it's a big fat cell, right? It's too big. Can't take the surface area to volume ratio is too small. It's like 1.5 to 1. It's way too small. I can't get rid of all the waste, and it can't take in all the nutrients. It's like that 1-bedroom apartment that doesn't have a door. It's not good. So then it's like trigger, double my DNA. So it doubles the DNA, all right? Doubles the DNA. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay, G2. It's all ready, prepares, doubles the organelles and everything. Goes through mitosis, prophase, metaphase, chromosomes line up. Anaphase, chromatids go to opposite sides of the cell. Telophase, nucleus goes back. So what do you think? Do you think it's identical or genetically different? What's your guess? I'm going to write it down. Nowhere did I say there's new information. Nowhere. So it's identical. Produces 2 cells. It's a division of the body cell nucleus and identical. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. We'll review this tomorrow because that was a lot of information to remember from 7th grade. So I want you to answer through 22 and then read about mitosis in your textbook. Sound good? I believe it's 8.2. Have a good day. Email me with questions.